Good Friday morning. This is Guy McPherson of GuyMcPherson.com. You might know it as Nature Bats Last. And it's Friday, October 2nd, 2020. I'm on the road in Danbury, Connecticut, on the way to an awards ceremony in 9 days in Saratoga Springs, New York. No, Saratoga Springs, New York. Sarasota is the one in Florida, from whence I came. All right. Anyway, here with a few headlines and an indication of where the stock market's headed at the open of the stock markets in the United States. Bear in mind, we haven't shot and released one of these videos since Monday. Here it is Friday, so there's been a lot going on. Consider, for example, from NPR last Monday, nearly 2/3 of U.S. households struck by COVID-19 face financial trouble. All together now, duh. Yeah. The pandemic is causing people to lose jobs and not go to their jobs even if they have a job or they're working at home. And in any event, the economy is in the midst of a massive recession, we'll call it, that is so far worse than the Great Depression of the late 1920s and 1930s. So there you go. People aren't making out as well as they used to. Indeed, from Yahoo Finance, 4 reasons why October could stink for the stock market too, just as September ended up stinking for the stock market. From Barron's, stocks are surging, but volatility may be planting roots. This goes back to the beginning of the week again, so stocks were surging there for a while. From Vox, experts say COVID-19 cases are likely about to surge. Again, sing it along with me. Duh. Of course. The first wave is behind us or nearly behind us all over the planet. We're headed into the second wave. It's already started in some locations. Second waves of pandemics tend to be worse than the first wave. Third waves tend to be worse than the second wave. So the headline from Vox should come as no surprise if you've been paying attention to this channel. Experts say COVID-19 cases are likely about to surge. I think we can call that very likely at this point. From Business Insider, expect more stock market weakness. A Wall Street strategist lays out how investors' most trusted defenses against crashes are failing them at a critical time. Again, that's because we're in an economic situation worse than the Great Depression from late 1929 through the 1930s. From Reuters, U.S. pension funds sue Allianz, that's Allianz with a Z, after $4 billion in coronavirus losses. From Los Angeles Times, big companies are swallowing up smaller ones. Why that's not good for the economy. And that's not good because a whole bunch of businesses are getting swallowed up by bigger businesses, and this is the American way. This is the oligarchic way. To consume until the big companies own all of the little companies and we're left with 3 places to shop. It looks like more than 3 places to shop because all the big companies own a whole bunch of different grocery store brands. So most of you people haven't been paying attention, but we are in an oligarchy. We are in an economic situation worse than the Great Depression. We are in abrupt, irreversible climate change. We are in a pandemic. We are in a mass extinction event. None of that bodes well for your continued existence here on Earth. From CBS News, as if they've been listening to me, coronavirus has killed more than 1 million people worldwide. Don't tell me it's fake. If you tell me that the coronavirus is fake, that means you're an ass. You have not been paying attention, and you don't care. From the Washington Post, Pelosi, Meadows say they're hopeful new economic relief deal is within reach. And sure enough, as a consequence, the stock markets shot up that day and the next day for the first time in a couple of weeks. From LinkedIn editors, Disney to axe 28,000 jobs from parks. From Bloomberg Businessweek, Harvard's Chetty finds economic carnage in wealthiest zip codes. Now, here's from the lead. Raj Chetty hasn't eaten at a restaurant in months. In fact, he's barely left his home near Harvard, where he's an economics professor. He's a MacArthur Genius Grant recipient. He's a smart guy, and he's not leaving his house because he doesn't want his children to die when he gets infected. Think about it. He's a MacArthur genius. You're not. Maybe take somebody's advice besides your own for a change. Maybe live as if other lives matter besides yours. You people, you're driving me crazy. I can't even see you. From Morningstar, the S&P 500 grows ever more concentrated. Again, yet another example of the oligarchy buying up the little firms and turning it into, well, an oligarchy that is even more oligarchic. I kind of like that word. That's why I keep saying it over and over. From the Wall Street Journal, airlines poised to sideline over 30,000 workers as Washington debates relief. Speaking of debates, from Politico, Debates Commission says it will add order to Trump and Biden's remaining showdowns. Good luck with that. Adding order from two senile, old, incompetent, racist rapists yelling at each other? Yeah, right. They can't even hear you yelling at them. They don't have their hearing aids in. It's all about vanity. From the Washington Post, pandemic triggers the most unequal recession in modern U.S. history. Not just modern U.S. history, or unless you, by modern you mean all the way back to 1929. This is the worst of the worst that has happened in more than 100 years with respect to the economy, with respect to who ends up with the money. Can you say oligarchy? From the lead of that paper, the economic collapse sparked by the pandemic is triggering the most unequal recession in modern U.S. history, delivering a mild setback for those at or near the top, and a depression-like blow for those at the bottom. It's not a depression-like blow, it's a depression. It's greater than the Great Depression. It's the greatest depression. If I were president, I'd go around bragging that it's the greatest depression and it happened on my watch. From Bloomberg, American, United to cut combined 32,000 jobs amid U.S. aid talks. And right after, on the heels of that at Politico, Trump signs a stopgap spending measure to avert a shutdown. So we're keeping government going for now, to the extent we can call this government going. From CNN Business, Japan's Tokyo Stock Exchange suffers its worst outage ever. The lead, a hardware failure has caused the Tokyo Stock Exchange to completely halt trading for an entire day for the first time in its history. Because during a Great Depression, sometimes you can't keep the power on. Sometimes you can't keep the water running through the taps. And that's what's happening right now, is the inability to maintain essential services during an economic recession. Depression. I keep saying recession because it's been so pounded into me by the corporate media that this is a recession instead of a depression. But this is a depression. This is exactly what a depression looks like. From Fox Business, layoffs soar amid slow economic recovery. One word is wrong with that headline. The headline reads, layoffs soar amid slow economic recovery. What it should read is, layoffs soar amid no economic recovery. Because we don't recover from depressions. Not for a very long time, and only if we have finite materials that we can tap into. Can you say oil? No. No, we're running out of everything that matters to maintaining civilization. There's no recovery this time. Speaking of losing power in the Tokyo Stock Exchange, from the Washington Post, millions of Americans could lose power, water. Could? This Tuesday, meaning 3 days ago, marked 67 days of darkness for Kenneth Parson. He fell behind on his utility bills in the spring and his lights went off and stayed off starting at the end of July. That's where we're going. We're going to lights out for good, forever. Think about how you're going to live. Think about how you're going to die. We're not far from the end. From CNBC, Amazon says more than 19,000 workers got COVID-19. It's actually 19,816. So it's just about 20,000 of their workers got COVID-19, been diagnosed so far. Why? Because Amazon making a buck for Jeff Bezos is way more important than the lives of those nearly 20,000 people. Way more important than the lives of the people who are being delivered packages of COVID-19. Way more important than you and me. Jeff Bezos' billions of dollars are worth way more to him than whether you live or die in the days and months ahead. And from the news that really matters, this is from NASA. Earth is heating up. And specifically, the August temperature is 2.14 degrees Celsius. 2.14 degrees Celsius above the 1980 to 2015 baseline. That's the baseline? So we ignore the first 205 years of industrial civilization, and we come up with this number, this 2. That means we're at least 3 degrees Celsius above the average baseline dating back to 1750. Earth is heating up. Yes, Earth is certainly heating up. And among the consequences from that Earth is heating up comes this headline from Foreign Affairs: Phantom Peril in the Arctic. Doesn't sound so bad. It's a phantom. I can't even see it. Phantom peril in the Arctic. Here's the subhead: Russia doesn't threaten the United States in the far north, but climate change does. Climate change threatens all of us. Abrupt, irreversible climate change in the midst of a mass extinction event, in the midst of a pandemic, threatens all of our lives. How are you going to live? How are you going to live in the limited time that you have left? That's the important question for today, for this week, for this month. So, how are we looking on the stock markets? It's 9:36 in the morning, and again, it's been a while. It's been since Monday, early morning at the open, since we released one of these videos. Today, the Dow Jones is down about 300 points 6 minutes after the open, with a 30-minute delay. NASDAQ is down about 200, S&P 500 is down 43 points. So I think, again, with a certain amount of variability, that the stock market is beginning to reflect economic reality and is on its downward slide with the occasional up and down on the way, all the way down. So this is like the Arctic ice. Occasionally there will be a blip up in extent or volume of ice over time, but since 1979, the trend has been all down, down, down. And when it hits that ice-free Arctic, it's going to cause the death of all life on Earth. And that's going to happen relatively soon. And in fact, as I pointed out many times, it doesn't take an ice-free Arctic to trigger loss of habitat for humans. In fact, it could be the stock market crash that triggers loss of habitat for humans through loss of aerosol masking. How are you going to live? How are you going to die? It's time to start thinking about these important questions. The time to start thinking about them was a long time ago, and the time for you is right now. So that's what I recommend.